Captain Kirk has an excellent body. Not even a Vulcan can know the unknown. And Spock does the Jedi mind trick, kind of. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
And Walter Koenig.
Здравствуйте, товарищи. Как вы делаете?
Sargon? My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek, the original series, Return to Tomorrow, written by John T. Dugan. Walter will tell us if that's Dugan or Duggan. Directed by Ralph Senensky. IMDb score, we'll find out later. This was February 9th, 1968. Where were you, and how are you guys doing today?
This is 1968?
Yep.
February 9th.
Well, I was a part of the company at that point. I thought it was a first-year show because I didn't even remember the title. It's all new to me.
I forgot it like 6 times every time I kept trying to write it. But we do remember Ralph Senensky, of course.
Yes.
John T. Dugan. Is it Dugan or Duggan? Do you know?
I had it in my notes as John Kingsbridge, so I think it's. I wanted to know where you got that name from because I had it.
I got it from IMDb.
Kingsbridge.
I wonder if it was.
In the credits, it said John Kingsbridge. Now he might have changed his name or something like that.
You are right. I'm looking at it here. So his real name is John T. Dugan or Duggan, but when he wrote that episode, he was known as John Kingsbridge. So I wonder if that was just a nom de plume.
Okay.
Can you shed any light on that for us, Walter? Do you know what the writer at all? He only wrote 1 episode, so maybe not.
Is that a question?
Yes. Do you know that
What was the
writer?
question?
Do you know John Kingsbridge or John T. Duggan?
I don't know the writer.
Okay.
Generally, I didn't know who the writers were. I do think this is a well-written episode. This reminds me in terms of structure and flow of the one we discussed a couple of weeks ago, which is also a show that took place mainly on the Enterprise. And I think we were all in agreement that that was very well designed. And you remember which one that was?
Yes, that was. Let me go back to it real quick and check. But I was thinking, well, while I'm looking at that one, that episode was called A Private Little War.
No, that's not the one.
Oh, I was so
It was one that
confident.
took place almost exclusively on the ship, as I recall.
The Immunity Syndrome.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Immunity Syndrome, yeah. That was a good episode. And I
Yes.
feel this is the same family of episodes. Quite well done.
I think this is also the first episode in a while where Sulu was back. So maybe that's why you were not in there, Walter. Maybe they just had the budget where they're like, we can do one, but not both. Did that ever happen?
You know what I found curious? Sulu had one line right at the top of the episode, and that was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it. I don't understand. If you're going to, if it's a regular in the cast, then you should employ him more frequently. It really speaks to the lack of regard that the production team had in terms of the supporting actors. You know, we were there as atmosphere mainly, with very little input into the story, and I thought that was a shame because you know, George had a great deal to contribute if given the opportunity, and so they had George saying one line. They had an extra atmosphere sitting in the navigator's seat. Bill Blackburn, I think his name was, something close to that.
Mm-hmm.
Never said a word, but it was cheaper hiring an extra than it would have been an actor.
You know,
So
they
he
also had a new nurse that we've never seen before,
Mhm.
and they brought her on to say one line. I don't remember what that one line was, but it was one sentence, one line. They also had Uhura, maybe a couple lines. She gets knocked out at the end there. Nobody checks on her unless I missed it. Did you know? I actually wanted to ask you guys that. Did I miss that? Did they check on Uhura at the end there? Or did they just say, we'll see what happens?
I think somebody walked towards her from what I can recall, but I thought that it was kind of strange to have her bookended in the episode. She was in the very beginning in the Sulu scene with one line, I think, and then completely forgot about, and then they brought her back in the episode for that one possession episode where Spock comes on the bridge. And I just thought, like, again, back to your point, Walter, about continuity and integration of the cast. It's a poor job of really integrating the crew at this point in the show. I feel like we should be seeing these crew members integrated into the story a lot better, as opposed to just very sparsely. Because Uhura's, was sparse. I almost forgot about her. Then I saw her again. And then, Sulu was just really just a cameo for almost. You're not in this episode. It just felt like they didn't understand the value that we as the fans wanted to see all of the crew working together.
Absolutely.
Problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of things that became part of the lore of Star Trek, and this is the first time I saw evidence of that. One was Scotty operating the transporter, and supposedly he did that on several occasions.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that I've seen it, and also McCoy not wanting to get on the transporter. That was part of the Star Trek lore as well. And this was the only time that I was aware that happened, where he said, "I don't want to get on."
I feel like he may have said, it sounds familiar to me. I feel like he said it once before, but it was a long time ago. Like for us, it was a year ago. So maybe that was 12 episodes ago. But I may be imagining that. It does sound familiar to me. Sirach and I watch a lot of Star Trek episodes and talk about them.
Yeah.
So I might be getting it confused with another. It could be Barclay for all I know. But
I think you're confusing it with Star Wars.
That's what it is. That's right. It was Luke Skywalker saying, "I got a bad feeling about this." That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Beat me up, Chewie.
But I wanted to validate what Walter said real quick. Bill Blackburn was the actor. You're correct. He played Lieutenant Hadley. Also, somebody that played the guard is a name I recognize. I don't know why I recognize it. Maybe you will too. His name was Eddie Paskey. I don't know.
Yes.
He must have played a lot of roles on this show because I 100% recognize him.
Eddie Paskey, in addition to being atmosphere, was also Bill Shatner's stand-in.
Okay.
So when they needed to light a scene, they would have Eddie come in and stand in his place. And then when they shot it, Bill would take his place.
Wow.
And lastly, the new nurse's name was Cindy Lou, just so we get all of that out.
The black woman? The black woman that was in there?
That they brought her in. And my first thought was, oh, that's cool that they did that, but they're probably not going to give her a line. And then boom, they gave her a line. I'm like, good job, Star Trek. You still do some things right. Sometimes some people get the shaft, and sometimes people get brought on and get a line or two. And I think they're probably super happy about that. I know I would be if I'm, some actor trying to come up in the world and I get brought on to Star Trek and they actually give you a line. Cool. But anyway, sorry, Sirach, what were you saying earlier?
So, no, when you said some people get the shaft, I was thinking that's what Kirk's all about.
Yeah, that's him.
Before we get into the very profound stuff that's our audience, with our insight and our wit and our charm, God knows. A little anecdote about Diane Muldaur. Years before Star Trek, I had an agent named David Moss. And as it turns out, he was also Dabney Coleman's agent.
Oh, cool. Dabney Coleman. Drexler's class. or Drexel's class.
Who?
He was the lead in a show called Drexel's Class in the
He was
90s.
leading several series. Very funny. Could be very funny. Oh, 9 to 5. He was the bad guy in 9 to 5.
Okay.
The boss. We went to drama school together, and I got to know him there. And then he married a girl in our class named Jean Hale, who did one of the Flint movies, and then decided not to work anymore. But my point is that I invited Dabney and Jean to dinner, and I also invited my agent, David Moss, who represented Diane Muldaur, and he brought her. So it was the 6 of us for dinner. This was like 1965. And it was very funny because Dabney asked Jeannie to tell a dream that she had, which he thought was quite amusing.
A dream of Jeannie?
Good one.
Her dream. She's a very pretty girl, a Mormon girl from Utah. Lovely, very sweet. But her dream had to do with a snake crawling into her bedroom under her door and climbing into bed with her. There were Freudian implications here that we all thought was amusing. I don't think Ginny quite grasped what we were seeing, that she wasn't. In any event, so that joke was told, and then I don't know how many years later, Diane did an episode of this episode of Star Trek, which I was not in, but she also did another one that I was in, and she had no memory of me whatsoever. Never remembered coming to my house for dinner. Now, the only other thing I have to say about her, she did an episode of a series about lawyers taking place in Los Angeles, and she played a really evil person, and she gets her just rewards because she falls down an elevator shaft and dies.
Wow.
Remember that very well.
The next episode that she was in of Star Trek.
Very talented actress, very attractive, and she did, terrific work on our show.
The episode she did afterwards that you're talking about is season 3, episode 5. Is there, in truth, no beauty? Season 3, episode 5. She plays Dr. Miranda Jones. But I wanted to ask Sirach. I've been waiting to ask you this all day. Did you recognize Anne, the actress that played Anne?
The actress that played Anne.
Yeah, that new red shirt kind of love interest with Kirk.
Oh, no, I didn't recognize her. But I did think I didn't recognize her.
This is so good because
I thought she was very beautiful.
It's like 50-50. Do you know she came back to Star Trek after these 2 episodes, and she did a total of like 20 episodes in a series called The Next Generation. She was a lead in season 2. She played Dr. Pulaski.
Oh, that's Dr. Pulaski.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, that's her.
Well, she's considerably younger in this episode, and so obviously she's just beaming in her prime, and so she's so gorgeous. She has those seductive eyes, really great facial expressions. I thought she was fantastic to me. Couldn't get any better. As far as a love interest and a leading woman in this, I could see why, the way Kirk looked at her from the instant that she became, when he said, "Who are you?" It was like, how the hell did you come on this ship and I don't know about it?
So, Walter, this is Diane Muldaur in The Next Generation. She was a lead for an entire season.
And fantastic in that character as well. Yeah, she played Dr. Pulaski, which was Dr. Crusher's replacement for one season. So she replaced Gates McFadden's role as Dr. Beverly Crusher for one season, and her character was called Dr. Pulaski, and she was fantastic. She was strict, a kind of hard-nosed disciplinarian type of character that eventually grew on us because she came in poking shots at characters like Data.
But then she skewered him, yeah.
But then she became.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so she's been fantastic in everything I've seen her in so far.
So I just wanted to say something. Since you brought me here for color, I did a convention last weekend in Portland, Oregon, and Gates McFadden was one of the guests. Now, I'd always had a very kind of impersonal relationship with her. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just that we never seemed to have much to say to each other, but she was always polite and pleasant. But we really hit it off this last weekend. And she had some very nice things to say about me that I had never heard from her before. So I just want you to know that I'm going to ask for a lot more money on the next episode we do this.
Oh, no. Gates.
I have to say as well that I've grown extremely fond of Gates in recent years. The more I got to know her, I felt like, I didn't know her well enough. And as I've gotten to know her over the years, I truly love her. And I think she's just a beautiful person. She's got so much to give and so much vibrancy and energy and thoughtfulness. And she's just a caring, sweet person. So much like her character, who is a caretaker and caring and sweet and thoughtful and intelligent, she is really an amazing human being that the more I get to know her, the more I love her. So
she's very funny too.
She's funny. She's witty.
Player.
She's got
friendly.
great stories, and she's just an amazing person. So I'm glad that I'm glad to know her as a friend, and like I said, the more you know her, the better you think of her. So, and watching her work has been a joy for me as well. Watching these 6 seasons of Next Generation, so I get to know these people that I really have a true friendship with outside of their characters. Walter, I know people because I've seen them at conventions and we know each other from green rooms. But when I actually watched the work that you guys have done, everybody, and I watch the work and I appreciate the art that they put in the form and the creativity and the passion and the love that they put into the craft, I get to experience everybody in a different way and appreciate their talent in a different way. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to watch these episodes with you, Walter, and watch the magic of William Shatner, really guide us through this science fiction show and make it believable. He sells things that are sometimes ridiculous. I mean, it's not easy for you to pretend like you're possessed with a thing and convulsions and things of that nature and sell it in a believable way in which, you consistently have a straight face and your poker face and you're moving through these episodes. So I thought William Shatner did a fantastic job as well in this episode, going back to this.
I think I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. Bill Shatner, in the role of Captain Kirk, took more chances with that character and dimensionalizing him and showing us the side that was a little not so complimentary than most leading actors. Most leading actors are trying to be Edgar. Do you know who Edgar Bergen was? He was a ventriloquist, and the point of ventriloquism was to not let your mouth move when you spoke for the puppet. And most leading actors are sort of, do that. And Bill took chances all the time. I mean, for him, it wasn't chances because he knew what he could do. He had a strong sense of his versatility. But I always appreciated. I mean, there were a couple of times, like in the first Star Trek movie, when he was a little on the petty side, when he wanted the captaincy back, and at Steve Collins' expense. And I thought, good for him for letting us see that he wasn't Douglas Fairbanks Jr. And God knows, I'm stretching it a little bit there, but that's where I go back.
The only thing I know from Fairbanks is I know it's a city in Alaska, and I know it's a really cheap brand of port wine.
He's an actor, Douglas
Okay.
Fairbanks. But yes, I think that what William Shatner does really as great as it can be done is sometimes put yourself in a position to look foolish and still pull it off. And that's what I think he does so well. There's moments when he's rolling on the floor or pretending to be convulsing or whatever it is that, you have to use your imagination, and it has to comport to the story of this foreign alien and this science fiction. He sells it to us in a way that it's believable. I buy it. It's not too cheesy. He in moments that he feels like, he'll make it a little bit light, and then he'll bring it back to seriousness. He really gives you the emotional beats and cues that you need. For example, like when he looks at the girl and he says, "Whoa," that moment there, he sells it right quickly, and then he draws it back in, and you see him go back to a different moment, a different facial expression, different emotional cue that he needs to hit. And he's going around just really hitting these emotional cues throughout the episodes of love interest, of leader, of submissive to the villain, all of these things, and just beat by beat, keeping the tempo going, and really, I think, just being an amazing leading man.
On the other hand, we never criticize Leonard very often. He's so that character. He's so Mr. Spock. Everybody else is imitating Leonard, as far as I'm concerned, who plays Spock, whereas Leonard was Spock. However, in this episode, I thought he took an easy way out. He took a diametrically opposed character to who Spock was. He leaned against the door. He was casual. He was smiling a lot. And I thought this was an opportunity to dig deeper, find other qualities that you could attribute to this energy thing that was inhabiting his body. I thought it would have been interesting to see some other qualities other than the obvious diametrically opposed quality. The diametrically opposed quality was laughing and smiling and casual. But if I had been directing that episode, and if he would have listened to me, which I think he probably wouldn't have, I would have said, let's find something else. Let's find something really sinister in this guy that is not evident in Spock, but is not an obvious choice. And that's what I was thinking when I was watching this.
And I'm glad you articulate that, because I didn't put my finger on what it was that I wasn't sure about, and you just pretty much nailed it right on the head. And I think that is an excellent take, Walter, because what he could have done was lean into the experience of this entity being in a Vulcan body and accentuated the Vulcan characteristics that he then therefore has. So those things would have been exceptional smell, so he can smell a woman from across the room, or he can smell somebody in a deep way. Also strength. He has the ability to maybe grab you by the arm and use excessive pressure, and maybe you're like, hey, And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize, I'm just getting used to this form." And in so more subtle ways, I agree with you. It would have been better. I felt the casual kind of humanistic way that he was playing it with the smiling was more of a human portrayal of a casual kind of player, laissez-faire type of person, but it wasn't indicative of an alien entity that was extremely intelligent and maniacal. It was too playful. And I agree with you, Walter, that he could have taken it actually deeper into the Spock role and give us more subtle glimpses of why this guy is more on the edge of darkness.
But then would he have wanted, or would then who was the main guy? Sargon. Would Sargon wanted to have saved that guy who went into Spock if he were such an evil person? I think, didn't he say there are two others that I need you to save? And maybe I missed it. Maybe he said one's kind of a jerk, but whatever. But I feel like he was like his friend in some way. But just real quick, you guys, when you mentioned Sirach, him maybe grabbing somebody and hurting them, I immediately remembered something from, I think, the 80s. You remember the Bionic Woman played by Lindsay Wagner, I think? There was like a scene where she's learning her strength and she's holding a wine glass and crushes it by accident, something like that. That would have been really cool to see, where he just grabs somebody and they're like, "You just broke his clavicle, bro. Relax."
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree with Walter. It's an easy way out. If I try to play the a diametrically opposed character to what I am already, which is this very logical, robotic type of person who has no emotions, that's fine. But then what you do is you tweak that in a way that is not so visible, but comes through very slightly. It didn't have to be so dramatic. We already had a voice change with the character. So the voice change in itself, amplifies certain subtleties that you want to highlight. I think Walter has, 100%. I think that was the easy choice. I can just be the, really fun guy. I'm serious. This guy's fun and casual and jokey, but he's maniacal. That's a little bit too it's too obvious. This was an opportunity for Spock or Leonard he could have played with it a little bit more and gone into it a little bit deeper. And it would have still played very well. Actually, it would have been even better. Not that I didn't like this. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was well written. I love the love interest story about it. It's kind of about an eternal love story, right? This is a, Romeo and Juliet science fiction version of it. And I think that it's a beautiful story. But on the other side of the break, I think there's other things, elements of it too, that are interesting as well, that are not so obvious and on the nose.
You know me so well. I was just going to jump in and say it is time for our break. Walter's wearing his Dodgers hat. He's ready for pitchers and catchers soon. We're going to take our break, and we will be right back on the seventh rule. Sirach pitched the break, and I caught it.
There it is.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig. It is time for the trivioids of the week, a few items that we picked up along the way. Someone or something has succeeded in getting the attention of the Enterprise crew. Not even a Vulcan can know the unknown. That's kind of weird. Sargon calls the crew of the Enterprise his children. Kirk has an excellent body. Kirk floats in time and space. And Mulhall is willing to host Thalasa's mind. A starship is all about risk. And Spock does the Jedi mind trick. You mentioned Star Wars earlier. So the Jedi mind trick I don't know if you know what the Jedi mind trick is, but it's when Obi-Wan Kenobi goes like, "These are not the droids you're looking for," and they go, "These are not the droids we're looking for." It's kind of like planting something in someone's mind. Spock definitely did that to Christine Chapel. I'd never seen a Vulcan be able to do that, but clearly he did that with kind of a Vulcan mind meld. I guess it works, right?
Yeah, it worked for me. It worked. They did a nice lighting effect too. Well, there was a few moments where they had lighting effects with this kind of a blue light that would come over, and trying to give us an indication that this transition from the globe to the person was happening. And I thought the director did a really good job with this episode as well. I felt like it was big enough. I felt like there was enough movement in the camera. Um, there were great shots. There were some really good overhead shots. There was some really good camera work in this episode, and it felt like the flow of this episode was going very well. So it was also edited well as far as pace. I didn't feel it moving slowly. I don't know. How did you feel, Walter?
I thought, as I said, to reiterate what I said earlier, I thought this was a very tight, very well structured story.
Yeah.
I like the complications. I like that the Diana's character didn't want to go back. She wanted to. She liked her body. I like the complications of her relationship with Kirk when they were other other creatures, other beings. I just it kept my attention throughout, and it makes me think that this is more pure science fiction than some of the stories we did. Some of the stories were fanciful. Gamesters of Triskelion was a little bit over the top for me. I understand that it was entertaining, and for its time, it certainly brought something, to the show. But I particularly felt rewarded in watching this episode because it had integrity, and it made me feel like this is something that everybody involved could feel they had made a really good contribution to.
And Walter, you hadn't seen this episode before, correct? This was your first time seeing it?
Absolutely.
That's great. And you came and you walked away feeling good about it. And Sirach, just to kind of touch on what you said, I noticed the editing was really good too. I thought not only was the story tight, but the editing was good. Whether that's the editor or whether that's the director looking over the editor's shoulder, I don't know. But I noticed that when you have a glowing ball that's supposed to be non-matter, but it's clearly matter. I mean, it's a freaking ball right here. But when you have a glowing ball talking, it's pretty boring for the viewer to just, without realizing it. For our eyes, we need something more than just a glowing ball. And so they would use these cutaways of Shatner absorbing the information while the ball is talking. He's just kind of absorbing it, barely reacting, but enough to keep our attention. Then a cutaway back to the ball, and then back to Spock, making a little eyebrow move or something like that. So I thought those were good, subtle things that kept things moving. It kept the story moving and kept it visually interesting, because you need that. If you're just staring at a ball, people are going to lose interest really quickly. So little things like that, I thought really just kept everything moving. It kept everything tight. I didn't find any flaws in the script. It was just there was no B story, right? It was
pretty much a one storyline. The B story was the twist, essentially. But I will say though, going back to Walter, he talked about integrity, and I want to say that was one thing that resonated with me in this episode was integrity, and there were several examples in which I thought it was reflected. One instance was when the crew was gathered together in the boardroom, and Kirk is trying to convince them that they all need to be on board for this. They have to all agree for this to happen. and Bones was the holdout, and Kirk needed to convince Bones. And instead of ordering him, getting mad, yelling, he actually recognized that that's not the right approach, and took a path of integrity in which he gave a very good speech that I thought worked well on camera and worked well for Kirk's character, where he talks about risk is our business. And he went on to talk about, why it was necessary to do this. And I thought, that's how you win. You win by convincing people, not by bullying them, but by forcing them. You win by convincing people, and that's good leadership from your captain. Another moment that I felt showcased integrity was when Bones was given the proposition to basically get his captain back, but the Dr. Lieutenant Milhill would lose her life in her body. And he said, the quote was, "I will not peddle flesh." And so, boom, that's his integrity. He's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not in the business of, I know I don't know this lieutenant woman. I don't know her that well. I love my captain. We're buddies. But I'm not going to be out here doing a deal with the devil to trade her life for, it's just not, I'm not going to do that. So that's another moment of integrity for our characters. And so that's why I believe this episode is well written, because it puts your lead characters in a light that shows us that they are in a righteous position.
Good for you. I like this.
I love you too, Walter. I love you too. But yeah, those were the moments that I felt were, just why this episode was well written. But I do also want to talk about some of the things that I don't think are coincidences, because I was so interested in these names, because one of them was Thalesa, his wife was Thalesa,
and
the
Sargon,
and Henoch was the other one.
They sounded kind of Greek or mythological to me, right?
They're all mythological. Well, no, they're not all mythical. 2 out of the 3 are mythological, or not necessarily, but depends on how you look at mythology. But Thalassa is a goddess of the sea. So the woman who plays the wife character, she's named after a Greek goddess of the sea that first appears in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. So
definitely felt like it. It definitely felt like Greek mythology with that name.
Yeah, so that's where that name first appears. Now, Henoch, which was the protagonist and the antagonist in this character episode, the evil alien spirit that was, took Spock's body. Henoch is a biblical character. It's actually pronounced Henoch or Enoch. Mm-hmm. There's the book of Henoch or the book of Enoch.
Right.
And Enoch is the grandfather of Methuselah, who, is part of this Noah lineage. So Enoch is also biblical character. And then Sargon is a real life person that lived, that was the first king of the Assyria, of the, where do I have it here in my notes? The first king of the Sumerian Empire. So he's essentially known as the first ruler of an empire. And so Sargon, a real person whose name is found in Babylonian texts and carved stone carvings, is a real person. And the reason I think all of this is interesting is because it gives us a knowledge of an understanding of both where Gene Roddenberry, what he's drawing from inspirationally for the show, and also where the writer, in this particular case, John Kingsbridge or John Dugan, however he'd like to be remembered, but how he's formulating these thoughts. This is a religious episode that has those kinds of inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about the Adam and Eve being our progenitors, and they're saying we might have been the Adam and Eve of your lineage. And so they're challenging some of the belief systems that we hold true, and that's what I think also Roddenberry does so well in his science fiction, is take bedrock belief systems that we have and challenge them in slight ways. And then this one was essentially taking the Christian doctrine of Adam and Eve and saying, well, what if they were really descended from these aliens that lived 500,000 years ago or whatnot? And so it just puts a question mark on whatever you believe. So it allows you to think critically of what you believe and say, well, no, I don't, I think that's ridiculous. Or you may say, oh, I never thought of it that way. And in a world in which we have so much conventional doctrine, which we try to hold on strictly to the strict, practice and the letter of the law and the way things are handed down to us, what I believe science fiction does is allow us to question those things and either reaffirm why we believe those things or begin to separate ourselves from some of those beliefs. And so that's where you either, you strengthen who you are by having this mirror reflected up on you.
Mm-hmm. I also think, just to jump on that, I thought it was really cool that he chose to bring names from a multitude of different historical cultures, right? Greek mythology, right? That's Western civilization, right? The Bible, we all know how that's influenced the world. Sumeria, some of the first writings and math and all that was happening in Sumeria, Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq. So that's really cool to think like, oh, well, they passed by thousands of years ago and planted little seeds throughout the world. It would have been too easy to just kind of go in one particular spot, but it was nice to pull from a bunch of different civilizations in history.
Yeah, and I just think that's why I like this. That's why I like Star Trek so much, because it makes me look up those kinds of things. Like I don't know those things off the top of my head, but I investigate because I am curious and I want to know, where do they get this from? And really, when I talk with Walter, he gives us so much about origin of things.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Diane Muldaur comes from. This is where these people come from. And I don't know how many times Eddie Paskey gets his name called out in the world, but the fact that he does on this show, that we celebrate him and give him his praise for the contributions he made. That's what I love about Walter's insight, because that's the treasure trove of knowledge that he has just haphazardly filed in that database there.
What do you think about that, Walter?
No. Falls into the category, leave well enough alone. And he said very nice things. I'll only spoil it if I add it here.
Well, even when you bring us really cool and interesting stories from 60 years ago, like you mentioned, you kind of just touched on it, but you mentioned having dinner with Diane Muldaur, and you thought we weren't going to dig a little deeper on that. Can you tell us more about it?
Say that again?
Can you tell us a little bit more about your dinner with Diane Muldaur? And you're saying she didn't remember it?
It was sort of like my dinner with Andre. You know what that?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you're too young, Ryan.
It took me a second to put that together to remember that. Okay.
Anyway, it was, she was represented by the same agent I was, and I invited him, and he invited her to come too. So the six of us sat to dinner. It was as I recall, it was pleasant. She was, very nice. I was just a little taken back by the fact that she had no memory of it at all. That she had been at my house, that she had eaten whatever it was, borscht probably. No, it wasn't borscht.
Oh, bummer.
Whatever it was that we had.
Do you recall if what around when this dinner took place? Was it during the second season of
It was before
Star Trek?
Okay.
Oh, this was
Way
before
before.
Star Trek.
Yeah, it was I got married in 1965, and it was probably within a year of my marriage,
Okay.
a year or two.
So
I
you
didn't
had
start
this dinner, and then
working
maybe a
until-
year later, she was in the season 3 episode with you, and she didn't remember you then, which was like 69. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Kind of. So back to this episode here. Walter, it's rare that you don't have any critiques about an episode. So far, you've been very nice to this episode. Was there anything you would have changed? Besides Spock, actually, you did mention Spock's performance or Leonard's performance.
The only thing I would have seen. And I know he would not have listened because nobody ever listened to the directors on television, at least the directors that I've had. So they didn't even try. You know, they came into the situation saying, "Well, you folks have already played these characters. You know how you want to play them. Who am I to introduce elements that are not harmonious with what you've been doing?" So, generally speaking, I think the directors, and you can comment on this, Sirach, I think the directors we had probably were more capable than they were given the opportunity. They just said, well, if they talked to anybody, it was the guest stars. You know, they left the actors pretty much alone. In fact, I think I may have mentioned this before. My second season was exclusively Mark Daniels and Joseph Pedney, and they alternated every week. Now, I had worked for Joe before on the Hitchcock show, and he was very, very flattering and reinforcing on the Hitchcock show. And I sensed the same vibe when we were doing the Star Trek episodes. Mark Daniels, on the other hand, seemed, and this is my paranoia, and I fully admit to paranoia. He seemed like, who is this guy, this intruder? Why is he here? That went on for 3 or 4 episodes. And then we did I Mud. And I had a couple of funny lines in I Mud. And I looked up and he was smiling. I said, okay. So he doesn't really think that I'm the second coming of the devil. And, and that we were on good terms. So that was my the only guy that I ever saw got angry was Judd Taylor. Judd Taylor, I think his name was Judd Taylor. Am I right? He did an episode and he got really furious with Bill, and he screamed at him. And Bill told him in no circumstances where he could take his criticism, and he actually stormed off the set. I'm not going to go into any more detail. But it was the only time I ever saw a director really confront one of the regular actors.
Did that director ever come back after that?
I doubt it.
Probably not. Walter, did that director ever come back after that, or was he done?
I don't know, but I respected him. I respected him for standing up. I'll tell you the episode. It was Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, with the half black, half white aliens, and the half white and half black aliens.
Charonians or something
right?
like that.
It was Judd Taylor.
Yeah, Judd Taylor. That is correct.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what those aliens were called. Charonians or Charons, something like that. Anyway, I want to see if he directed anything after that in Star Trek, just very quickly.
I bet he didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Hang on one second. I'm checking.
I'll take that bet too.
It looks like, no, he did do 2 more episodes after that. They were soon thereafter, so maybe he was already kind of hired for those and then did not come back after. He did 5 episodes in total, and this was his 3rd.
Of our series?
Yeah, they were all in season 3. They are The Paradise Syndrome, Wink of an Eye, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, The Mark of Gideon, and The Cloud Minders.
Huh. Well, I don't remember which ones I was in, but I wasn't in all of them. I know that.
Just
well, that's good. That actually is a sort of a backhanded compliment to Bill, because they did not get along, and I think if Bill had been had harbored any hostile feelings, Judd would not have been asked back. So evidently, they got over whatever difficulty they had with each other, and Judd did more episodes. Good.
Charon, that's what they're called. That alien, Cheron. Okay. Anyway, Sirach. That's really cool about the director coming back. I did not expect to see that, but
yeah,
did you guys
lost
notice
money on the over?
Yeah, did you guys notice? I definitely thought of you, Sirach, when I was looking at the walls in the cave. Oh, yeah. Actually, right behind here. Really interesting color scheme of kind of a dark blue.
Almost.
Yeah, it's like a dark blue and a copper-ish or bronze, but they kind of blended together. And I can't help but just think, like, as a kid, I would see these and say, wow, these look terrible. But now when I realize this was done in the 60s with such a tiny budget, and I just can't believe how creative the art department was with a small budget, a very short amount of time, and not a lot of precedent for how to make walls on a sci-fi movie. They were basically, creating things for the very first time. They weren't basing this off of something that happened 30 years ago, like what we can do now. They were inventing sci-fi production design. It's really impressive and really interesting to look at, like, how their minds worked back then.
I think I addressed that in one of our previous conversations, saying that the temptation is to judge what we saw being done in the 60s by today's, technology, expertise, whatever. And that really isn't fair.
No, it's doomed to fail 100% of the time if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
I thought the set design was beautiful. I that's why I said, everything blended together for me. The directing, the set design, the costumes, everything was just beautiful to me. I liked the walls. I thought they looked metallic from my perspective. I thought the set design was great. There was the slitted doors behind you, or wall, whatever that facade is. I thought that was a nice design touch. Even the glowing balls of energy were well done. There wasn't any like wires hanging around them, or it just looked believable. So, for all of it was great. Even they had a storage room full of those balls, and I was like, wow, that looks pretty cool. They made a whole storage locker full of these glowing balls.
However, I cannot forgive the Mogato.
No, well, that was different.
That's the dumbest alien I have ever
seen. That's different.
Well, wait till you see the dog with a horn on it. But there was something else I noticed about William Shatner, and I'm sure somebody can look this up, but I'm certain this must have been in his contract, because even when he's possessed by some crazy old alien, he still gets the lady. Did you notice that? They literally bring in a guest star just to be possessed with him. And he said, what if it was Scotty? Why couldn't it be Scotty? But every time, it says right here on section 4, subsection 14, even if possessed by an alien, Kirk must get ass. That's I actually saw his contract.
What I thought was interesting was the ending when the alien says, "Can you give us one last use of your bodies to say goodbye?"
Me too. I was
And
like, whoa, where is this
and,
going?
and they look at each other like, you know what it is, and I'm like, and then they walk right in front of everybody. I'm thinking, guys, get a room if you're going to do a goodbye thing. Like, do what? Can they get some privacy? Doesn't the captain have a side room or something? It was funny to me that that whole last minute goodbye, use your body moment. So that was funny, and it was like a different twist that I did not expect.
I saw originally in the script, it was actually Kirk that says, "Oh, we're still possessed right now. We got to go into the room right now to give them their last goodbye, you guys. Set a course for whatever. See you soon."
Oh, that's crazy. Hey, you know who else was really good in this episode too? I want to say there's some unsung heroes. Major Roddenberry. She finally got a chance to do a little bit more than she normally does, and Major gave us some acting. She was,
Mm-hmm.
she gave us some lines. She was present in some scenes. She did her version of Spock impersonation, which I thought that was also kind of interesting there for us a little bit. So I really thought Majel did a fantastic job, and also DeForest Kelly. He had some very good moments there that I just thought were just good moments.
Mm-hmm.
He just has a very good way of being outraged over something.
Yeah, it does.
He's very upset and outraged over things, but his suspicion, the moment of suspicion that he puts on his face, for example, when Nurse Chapel said, "No, I'm fine," and he kind of he does a very good suspicious look
Mm-hmm.
on his face. Um, so yeah, DeForest Kelly, I think, is also an underprivileged or under celebrated performer in this because he fantastic and as a complementary character to the captain. The reason Kirk works so well sometimes is because DeForest Kelly is playing the counterbalance to his performance.
Totally. And on that note, this is the perfect time for the home run of today's episode. That's why Walter's wearing a baseball hat, everybody. It's the home run of today's episode. Sirach, who gets the home run of today's episode?
I want to say, as much as it's easy to give Shatner a home run all the time because he's really just that good, it's not fair to the individual episodes and being, special performances that we get. And in this case, I believe the person who stood out to me, who was intriguing and I couldn't stop, looking at and watching was Diane Muldaur's character. I was, fascinated with her, and
Me too.
I just feel like when you're that good, you get an opportunity to work more on Star Trek. And to me, that's Star Trek's way of saying we love your performance. They give you more work. And as we have seen in her case, she was given a lot more work to do on Next Generation and probably other episodes that I don't know about. But my home run goes to Diane Muldaur.
What say you, Walter? Who gets the home run of today's episode?
What was what?
Who gets the home
Say it
run of
again?
today's episode? Who gets the home run?
Oh, the writer. I gave it to the writer. I think I gave it to the writer on the other occasion when I thought script was very tight and very with great dynamic energy. So yeah, that's who I would give it to this time.
For me, it's kind of a tie between Diana Muldaur. At first, I thought that was the very clear-cut thing for me when I was watching it. But as the episode progressed, I really liked the music composing. I really liked, especially in that moment that Sirach mentioned where they have their final goodbye. suddenly there was this really beautiful music that started playing. And it really, it was just a beautiful song. It set the mood right with the emotions that were attached to it. And then it was immediately flipped over with, Spock entering all dark. And then there's that musical cue of like him, the evildoer musical cue that we've heard in so many other episodes. I just thought the composition, the composing, I should say, was excellent. And I don't know exactly if that's Alexander Courage or if that's George Dunning, but hopefully the people on the other side can give us that answer, because there are a few people credited for composing. Those get the home run of the episode for me. We want to give a very special thanks to some people that are always composed. Their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom T.J. Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Cassandra G., Mark Zutkoff, Chris Garris, Linda Pages, Steve Case, Stephen Monk, Jonathan Capps, and of course, the guy that will be able to answer that composing question, Jason M. Oken. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all up next, and we will be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and Walter Koenig. This is the free-for-all with Melissa Longo and her cat.
Yay!
Also, Jason M. Oken is here.
Hi, everybody.
Mark Zutkov has pictures with him as usual. Allison wants to fly. Chris Garris is out in Southeast Texas. We have a very similar background, but yours has more color. Carrie Schwent is getting ready for the cruise already. She's the crafty bear. Steve Case has 2 guards with him that got left behind. And Chris McGee has a walking art made by Melissa Creation. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
8.5.
8.5. Does anybody have any guesses about what the score is on IMDb that doesn't already know?
Well, my sense that was an 8.1.
I'm going to give it a 8. 7.7? 7.5 IMDb.
Chris McGee.
Okay, I
Chris
went
McGee.
6.8.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 7.7. Yeah.
Oh, so Chris and I have the same guess.
Oh,
That's the Sean Bradley number, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, you've all overbid, everybody. The answer is, of course, 7.4. 7.4. Okay.
They underbid.
Yeah.
Does anybody, did you catch the some kinds of or some sorts of? I didn't catch any non-appearance mentions.
I caught 4, some kind of, almost 5 even. First saw Spock saying its atmosphere was totally ripped away by some sort of cataclysm.
Mm-hmm.
Then shortly thereafter said sensors registering some form of energy deep inside the planet. And as they're about to transport down, Scotty expresses his discomfort by saying, transporter coordinates preset by an alien of some sort. And finally, McCoy asking the question, but you once had a body of some type?
Mm-hmm. What was the almost?
Almost when later on, Dr. Anne Muldaur said, you're suffering from a form of euphoria.
Ooh, close.
Almost like.
Also, like that you said sensors when you were quoting Spock. That's cool. You know. All right. Melissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by letting us know what you and your cat thought of this episode?
Well, I mean, we got to see Dr. Pulaski. I mean, Dr. Mulhall. I think she changed her name or something. Which was really fun. It was good to see, it was fun to see her when she was younger. And the thing I love about Star Trek, and this episode very much encapsulated this, is the message that it puts out there. The overall message, and it comes with Captain Kirk's speech about taking risks, and we're explorers, and we're here to take risks, and his speech tells us exactly what Star Trek is about, and it hasn't deviated from this ideal at all. And we see this evidence of this constantly throughout Star Trek since the 60s. And we see the diversity in the medical crew, with the one nurse talking about Kirk's organs. We see this on the bridge with Sulu. We see this all over. There were at least 3 women on the bridge at the end of this episode. So this is not a new concept, and I say this because New Trek gets flack about this kind of thing when it's existed here from the beginning. And I love that. And I love that we can go back and we can see that, and we can see that in these kind of episodes. I also really enjoyed Leonard Nimoy's performance in this, because he was proper creepy. I mean, the dude creeped me out. Especially when he talked to Nurse Chapel. He was like, "Oh, you're a nice female." And he was looking, his eyes were going in places that it was like, whoa, dude. Her eyes are up there. So he was proper creepy. So yeah, overall, I think because of the message that it tries to portray and tries to put out there, I enjoyed the episode, and it kept my attention the whole time. I didn't get sidetracked, or which is great. It's a mark of a good episode, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Melissa Longo, without a cat now. Cat's gone. Jason M. Oken, first and foremost, do you know who composed, who did the scoring for this episode?
Mostly George Dooning, the same
Okay.
guy, the same composer who did Metamorphosis, also directed by Ralph Sinensky. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they brought him in for a more kind of a central score. It is somewhat of a partial score. They did reuse some of the score from, I think, Mirror Mirror, and there's some other things in there, thrown in, some other cues. But yes, they brought him for the score.
How did I know you'd know that? What do you think of this episode? And thanks for that.
I mean, to me, this is sort of an example of real classic Trek, because, you know, Melissa, you touched upon a few of those things. There are sort of these Star Trekian themes that shine through. I mean, there's this sort of this action. There's some other things going on, but there are these basic themes, as, you know, certainly Starfleet themes, as, you know, risk is our business is one of the more famous Kirk speeches. But also one of the things that you see here is the basic positive view of humanity. You see these super powerful aliens, if you will, with some of the themes being, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That goes back all the way to the pilots of Star Trek. It's certainly something we've seen. But also, even those super advanced beings appreciate what it's like to be basically a human being. You know, the feelings, the emotions. It brings humanity sort of into this positive light, that we should be, you know, happy and thankful for who we are. And I think those are the Star Trek themes that shine through. And that's why Star Trek has been around for so long. Not to sound disrespectful to some of the stuff that comes after, but this is almost, for me, a palate cleanser from a lot of things that I'd watched, you know, recently. It sort of brings you back to what Star Trek really is. And, you know, if you look at, you know, the episode itself, in sort of the microcosm of the episode. Melissa, you did say that Leonard's performance, it's probably one of his best. And he certainly was given a lot more to do. And you see how wonderful he is as an actor. Not a one-note, unemotional guy. I mean, you see all kinds of facets, and he certainly did a wonderful job portraying creepy Hanok. Originally, the way the script was constructed, Hanok was supposed to be even creepier than that, basically molesting Dr. Mulhall. I mean, all of that. They toned it down a bit, but it was supposed to have been a bit more than that. Ralph Sinensky, who was basically pinch hitting as a director, he was brought in late when Joe Pevney just basically quit Star Trek. He had to sort of do this on the fly, and at some level, I think, from what I understand, he let Jerry Finnerman really go crazy with the lights, and the show looks wonderful with the purples and the greens, and it's just, you know, it kind of shines through, and it's again, it has its moments. You know, again, the "Risk is our business" speech is classic. Anybody who's seen Star Trek would know that part, and has been, you know, a source of imitation, impersonation, and whatever else you want for Bill Shatner and his performance. It's a little large here. We get a preview of what we see a lot in season 3 in this episode, and I'll save some of that for later. But this episode did have some cutscenes and some rather interesting ones. Actually, the tag was a little longer, but I'll save that for later.
Can't wait. Thanks very much, Jason M. Oken. Good stuff as always. Mark Zutkoff, what did you think of this episode?
This is certainly a fun show with a few strange elements. I've seen all of TOS multiple times, including this episode, I thought, but the teaser for this episode was unfamiliar to me. Kirk's log in Act 1 immediately introduces the theme of risk that runs throughout the episode. Also in Act 1, Sargon is shown to be something of a bully. He tells Kirk the choice is his, but then gives Kirk no choice but to beam down and bring Spock. Partway through Sargon's speech, I realized it was James Doohan doing a magnificent job disguising his voice, although the reverb certainly helped. Take note of Shatner's performance as Sargon takes over his body for the first time. You'll see similar facial expressions and body movements much later in TOS, as Jason hinted. How are the crew convinced to submit to this outlandish scheme? Scotty is entranced by the prospect of examining advanced engine diagrams, and Kirk convinces the others with his famous "Risk is our business" speech. Once again, Leonard Nimoy gets to express emotions, this time possessed by Hanok. His smiling, easygoing, villainous performance is chilling and effective. Great use of the Vulcan mind meld to co-opt Nurse Chapel and keep Hanok's secret. Once he agrees to go along, McCoy is remarkably calm, even when Thalesa tells him she's going to keep Mulhall's body. At this point, the rules are gone. Suddenly, Thalesa has abilities Sargon doesn't permit to be used. There's a weird transition from Kirk ordering to kill the thing in Spock's body to Uhura screaming on the bridge. Something might have been cut. And now Sargon has additional abilities that he previously kept secret. Christine Chapel finally got a version of what she wanted throughout the original series. She and Spock shared consciousness together, which omitted consent, but it was somewhat sweet. And my home pun of the episode, given how the aliens took advantage of them, restoring Spock to his body was the Thalesa they could do to make amends.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Mark Zutkoff. All right, Allison Leach Hyde, beat that pun.
I don't think I'm going to beat that pun.
No, you're right. It's a Sargon conclusion that his is going to be the best. What have you got for us today?
So I do like this one. I like this one more each time I see it because so much is really going on in this episode. Like as a kid, the first time seeing it, I mean, suddenly our characters aren't our characters, and some are bad, some are good. It's, you know, when you're 6, you're like, I don't know what's going on. Fine. But I'm a lot older than that now. And I love the subtle nuances of the idea that Adam and Eve were from another planet. And, you know, that whole bringing in our theology into science fiction, which we do all the time, but specifically we do a lot in Star Trek, and I enjoy that. It's fun to look at some of our theological stories and beliefs, and like, how can we make this fit in a grander scheme, and in fiction, because we live in fiction. So we love it. It's how we figure out who we are. And I think this episode does a wonderful job of that. Getting to watch, our super unemotional Spock get to be super emotional and creepy. It's a lot of fun. And he is super creepy. I agree. Like that whole thing when he wakes up and is looking Chapel up and down is not okay. But she seemed to like it, which, that was a whole thing. A little twirl of the hair at the neck was a bit much. But I also truly liked when Thalassa realized that she's like, oh, wait, this is why we can't do this. Like, no, we are beyond being in these bodies and living with these type of powers, because we don't know how to I don't want to say control them, but to not use them for bad, I guess we'll go for. I liked that as well. And I was super happy to have the bright colors back in the background. I've missed them. It was lovely having George back, but I missed Walter. Why couldn't Walter been on the bridge as well? And yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, we all wanted some Walter on there for sure.
My name, but I didn't hear the reference.
We just missed you on the bridge of the Enterprise is all. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde, in the heart of New Mexico. Chris Garris is in the heart of Southeast Texas. Is that a thing? I don't know. What do you think of this one?
It was good. First time to watch it, as most of these are now in this season for me. Immediately when they got down to the planet, he and Sargon started talking. I had it was very reminiscent of the chase for me. How they were talking about how they went and were seeding the galaxy and everything. So I was like, okay, but we've seen that. Before. And it was hard to tell at first if Sargon was going to be, honestly good or bad. And ultimately, he actually turned out to be a good a good pure energy source or something. Because, even at the end, he realized that they could not be in bodies because they just couldn't trust themselves, to not be, kind of evil or whatever you want to call it. But, Leonard's performance as Henoch was really good because, he gave you that sense of, the bad guy twirling his, mustache every now and then because I'm going to get you or do this. Something that I did find out while, I was looking over the notes for this is that this was the first time that, Dr. Mulhall's character, she is the highest ranking female ever shown in TOS, according to IMDb. So that was a really interesting, thing to find out. So again, it was not a bad episode. It just, I really enjoyed it. And like someone said, I never lost interest. Like I actually was able to engage watching it the entire time. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was wondering, I was questioning, is he not gonna really be good? But I should have known that was not going to happen. And of course, he did what he did. So overall, it was a great episode. I enjoyed it.
Ain't that the truth? Thanks very much, Chris Garris. All right, Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear, never met a Star Trek crew she didn't love. What'd you think of this one?
I genuinely enjoyed it. It's probably one of those that I would go back and rewatch, and not just to listen to Diane Muldaur's awesome voice. I'm sad. I looked up her IMDb. I'm sad she didn't do more voice acting work because she had a fantastic voice, and my goodness, she was beautiful back then. I love especially her updo that she has like the first half of the episode, and having had a couple of updos done on me in the past. I guarantee you that took anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to get all of her hair up into that formation. It takes a while. But yeah, she's great. Love her, love her. The entity that borrows her body, Thalassa. I look in my research. It's Thalassa is the Greek name for the sea. So naturally, that I'm like, immediately I read that, I'm like, okay, yep, I know what my background's going to be. Done, easy choice. And of course, we have to rep George Takei in his "Oh My Tai" shirt that I got on the Cruise 5. Because we get him, even though he's only on screen for a little bit. And yes, I agree. I would have liked both Walter and George sitting there together. They're just even more adorable when they're sitting together. And it occurred to me that Sargon's warning was clearly an empty threat, because at the end of the episode, he chooses oblivion. In other words, he chooses to perish. But mankind did just fine, despite his warning that all of mankind was gonna perish if he did. So it was clearly an empty threat. It kind of made me smile. Those globes were beautiful, though. That they were living in with all like the lights inside. I think a smaller version of that would make a fantastic like desk lamp, or like the kind of desk lamp you turn on overnight to have like a small night light. Yeah, like that, like Melissa's got, kind of like that. Yeah, I thought they were pretty, and I will also jump on the Leonard Nimoy hype train. As someone who has watched Orphan Black, the series Orphan Black, a couple of times, and the many clones that Tatiana Maslany plays, it's very subtle changes to facial expression and body language, and instantly that actor becomes a completely different character, and you can tell the differences, even if the hair might be the same. So I definitely applaud Leonard for being able to make those kind of changes and make the person who was inhabiting him very believable. And yeah, Melissa's sadness when she is looking over that creepy android body laying there on that table, she's like, yeah, I can't live in this. Why would I want to live in this thing? She didn't say it, but you could clearly tell she was thinking that thing was creepy.
That was so rude.
I feel bad for the actor though, being covered in latex spray. That could not have been comfortable. I feel so bad for that dude. But the haiku that I came up with for the episode was sort of inspired by Thalassa's dilemma over stay corporeal, not stay corporeal. So I'll finish with that. And a reminder, haiku is only 3 lines, so it's very short. Bodiless so long. I don't like the one I made. It's time to move on.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. All right, Joe Bugbuster, aka Steve Case. What do you think about this one?
Well, this was a rewatch for me, and in the beginning, I was not thrilled with it. I remembered some parts, didn't remember other parts. In the first minute, I saw Shatner overacting more than he normally does, and I thought, what's going on here? And strange scripting, and Chekhov was not here to save the day. It was just... So I wouldn't like that, but then there was a fun early volley there where Kirk said, the planet is dead. And Sargon says, and I am as dead as my planet. Okay, that was cool. And as it went on, I warmed up to it and started taking more notes. It was fun to see Diane Muldaur in that, who also returns for another episode in season 3. As a different character, but as someone else mentioned, she becomes Dr. Pulaski for TNG Season 2 before they brought back Dr. Crusher. Spock's pure energy observation reminded me of a song that sampled him saying that, though it's funny. That was from another TNG episode where he said the same thing the same way. The red shirts had nothing to do in this episode since Sargon prevented them from beaming down. So nobody died in this episode except for 3 demigods made of pure energy. Kirk's acting was unusually over the top, which made me suspect that the directing was at least partly the problem. And it was interesting to hear Jason mention the last minute director change. And I saw Walter shaking his head too, so I think he disagrees with me on that too.
I don't like hearing, forgive me, I don't like hearing about overacting. I don't think it is accurate. I don't think it is deserved. I think Mr. Shatner should be commended for commitment, for being willing to go ahead and jump in, head first, and give the most provocative, most heartfelt performance that can be given. He stands apart from a lot of leading men actors who, as I said earlier, choose the tight-lipped, steely-eyed posture, and that's all they do. Mr. Shatner, his stage background was very present to me, and I always, we don't get along. He hates me, actually, but I do think he's an accomplished performer, and I cannot resist expressing my opposition to those kind of comments.
I appreciate that. Nothing personal. I actually had another thought about why I might have had that reaction to it, and we can get to that in things left unsaid. It was interesting how Spock and Nurse Chapel shared a body, but there was no mention of their relationship back in the Strange New Worlds day under Captain Pike. I recognized Sargon's voice like some of y'all. I couldn't place it, so I checked the credits and realized it was James Doohan. And so he actually got a leading role in this episode just by merit of his voice. And so I thought the episode started rough, but it had a thoughtful ending, and I was liking it again a lot better by the end.
Excellent. Very nice. Thank you so much. Steve Case, a.k.a. Joe Bugbuster, Chris McGee. Do you want to talk jive about Shatner? Do you dare? What do you got on this one?
Well, I guess you'll find out in just a moment. It had been a minute since I last saw this episode, so I had largely forgotten about it, to be honest. I'm not sure I understand the title Return to Tomorrow, but nevertheless, upon my rewatch yesterday, I discovered that I enjoy it more than I remember, especially appreciating the message it conveys. Like, ultimately, the episode seems to come down to a variation on the old power corrupts parable, with Enoch showing how tempting it is to just ignore your moral compass when you have godlike abilities. And in addition, having existed for so long without a physical form, the aliens have effectively lost their souls. Sargon and Thalassa finally realize this at the end and come to appreciate the beauty of mortality, and that the limitations of a physical existence are what gives humans perspective and to strive to make a life better for their children. As everyone mentioned, we finally get to see Diane Muldaur in her first Star Trek role as Dr. Anne Mulhall before she returned to Next Generation as Dr. Catherine Pulaski. At least she's consistent by always having a PhD. I thought the acting in this episode was great. Shatner did a great job with the booming, regal weight of Sargon. But like everyone else, I was especially impressed by Leonard Nimoy's performance. He clearly enjoyed playing the villain with such sinister, smirking charisma. As everyone else also observed, this is the episode with Kirk's famous "Risk is our business" speech. I've heard it that it is an allegory for the space race and, of course, human progress in general, that humanity cannot grow if we hide from the dangers of the unknown, and I agree with that assessment. For my memorable quote or phrase of the episode, or word, it is a phrase this time, and that's both Kirk and Mulhall say it, and that's "they or it."
All right. Good stuff. Thank you very much, the Dark Lord, Chris McGee. Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, they mentioned Adam and Eve in this episode, and I would just kind of say that if our love interests, our two major love interests of Thalassa and Sargon, if they are Adam and Eve, then the serpent or the snake would be the Henoch character, and essentially what I see is an allegory about power and absolute power, but also, in a sense, a way of explaining that the presence of evil is actually part of an intelligent design. And as much as these entities were intelligent, quote unquote, there is no escaping the temptations of corrupting power or leaning in the way of abusing power. So I believe that is actually a flaw or a construct of intelligent design, and I think that's part of what this episode was, describing. I loved Majel's acting, specifically in the scene where she was, pretending like she doesn't remember what she had to do, and then she snaps into a different attitude when asked if she was tired. A great transition, just delivery wise. I thought Majel did a great job. This episode reminded me of, and not verbatim, but in general, of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which was originally a 1956 film, but was later redone in 1978 with Leonard Nimoy in it. So I just feel like this is almost like an homage to Invasion of the Body Snatchers to some degree. Also, I I really enjoyed the idea of this intelligent alien, but I did kind of question its intelligence when it wouldn't pick 1,000-year-old android body versus 100-year-old human body. And especially if they're the ones designing it, we've seen what Data could look like when we design an android. Imagine these supremely intelligent beings. They should be even more accurate and better at designing an android than we are. But, that's just my nerd brain. Yeah. I really enjoyed that risk is our business speech, but there was a moment there where and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like Shatner was reading some of the lines, and I could be totally wrong, but there were moments where his eye line I felt like was going back to a cue card of some sort, and that's just me being really particular about training my eye to look for those kinds of things, because there's a certain way your eye goes back and resets when you are reading.
We've definitely see Jonathan Frakes do it in one episode kind of recently, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and I felt like there may have been a crutch somewhere there for him to lean on when he needed, because his eyes were scanning and then it kept going back to a particular location, which I felt like was where the crutch was. Could be wrong. And then the last thing I will say is, from a director's standpoint, there was a shot that was done that Ralph Sinensky did in this, and that was the shot that he took from the mirror to Thalassa. And it was a shot that went from this mirror to her, and the way the mirror was, it was like a distorted, funny mirror type of expression on her face. And that gave me a cue that something nefarious was up. Maybe she was suspicious of something, and there was a cue there that I shouldn't be 100% taking what I see as face value. And that turned out to be wrong, but I do like the way that shot was, because it threw me off as far as expectation in that scene. And that's how much a good director can influence somebody's viewing experience just by having a reflection of a mirror shot that shows somebody's face in a distorted way. That can pull on an emotional heartstring from the viewer, either leading them or misleading them. And I think that's a phenomenal job of great directing by Ralph Sinensky. So that's my final take.
Walter, do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
Well, I think Sirach covered it beautifully. Very cogent comments, very perceptive. However, I'd like to address Mr. Overly Particular. Bill did not read his lines. He did this because he was remembering them, but he didn't have to read them. That became part of his routine, part of his character to hesitate. But he did not read them, and I defend him on that basis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me sit in with you. I appreciate it very much. Have a great week.
Well, that's it for all of us then, everybody. Awesome. Don't you ever try to say a bad word about Shatner around Walter. He will give you the truth. He will tell you. Thank you to Chris McGee, Steve Case, Carrie Schwent, Chris Garris, Allison Leach Hyde, Mark Zutkoff, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Walter, Melissa, Sirach, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for partying with us. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.